Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Your girl is working now. I am in my hotel. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, and your girl is laying over. I have a 17-hour layover. But before I jump into today's video, let me introduce myself. I feel like I have new subscribers that need to get to know me. But if you're an OG, hey, I miss you guys so much. Your girl is back in her, her vibe, her aura. So we're back. But my name is Priscilla. I am a New York-based flight attendant working with a major US airline company. And I just started flying again. I was off for a while, but for over a year, like about 18 months. But your girl is back on the line, and I worked my first trip on May 18th. No, May 19th. I started my first trip, but I commuted it on May 18th. So your girl is back as a flight attendant again. I did my training, retraining, and everything. I got my license reinstated, so your girl is good to work. And I am here to share my experience with you all with regards to my first trip and my first trip as a New York-based flight attendant. I was previously based in Seattle. When I went through flight attendant training, when I got hired by my airline, I lived in Seattle, and luckily for me, Seattle as a base was open, and I got it, right? So I've been pampered. I was one of those moments where you get everything you're looking for. You get the airline you want to work for, you get your first choice of base and airline. But I took some time off, and during that time, I decided to transfer bases to New York because I'm originally from Ghana, and I wanted to commute from Ghana to New York to work, or to the US to work. So I decided to transfer bases to New York. I got that as well. So now that I'm back on the line, I worked my first trip as a New York-based flight attendant. And it wasn't the best of trips or credit or anything. On a normal day, I probably would not bid or choose that trip, but I was simply trying to get out of my reserve. That's why I ended up with it. So no hard feelings there. That said, I wanted to share my experience with you all. It was a domestic trip, right? It was a 3-day domestic trip that had a late report and was out of LaGuardia. We were initially supposed to do LaGuardia to West Palm Beach to Boston, and then from Boston to I believe, was it Detroit the next day or something like that. Long story short, this is one of the reasons why people don't even like working domestic trips. Sorry, I'm sitting on pillows just to make myself taller, but we're making it work here. So this is one of the reasons why some of us don't like domestic trip, because the rotation got scrapped, essentially. Whatever we had, I don't even remember it, because at this point, it is non-existent, okay? The rotation got thrown out the window. What happened was that after all was said and done, we did LaGuardia to West Palm Beach back to LaGuardia, and then we ended up doing LaGuardia to Detroit the next day, and then we did Detroit to Fort Lauderdale and laid over in Fort Lauderdale that day as well, on the second day. And then on the last day, we did Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta, and then Atlanta to LaGuardia. So on the first day, we actually ended up laying over in LaGuardia because they rerouted us, and we were supposed to do something to Boston or deadhead to Boston, and that never happened. So we ended up just laying over at domicile base, which is when you lay over at where you're based, right? So during that time, you have the option to choose between laying over at a hotel or simply going home and reporting back the next day. Even though I was based in New York, I don't live there, so I chose to take the hotel, which has a whole story on its own. And then on day 2, we actually laid over in Fort Lauderdale. I like the Fort Lauderdale hotel. It's like a mini apartment. So whenever I go to Fort Lauderdale, I might not like working the flight itself because of certain things, but I like the hotel, so I'm willing to suck it up just to get the hotel. We stayed on the East Coast for the most part. The release time was after midnight on the 22nd of May. Being back, I feel like everything that can go wrong on a trip happened on this trip. And based on the reason why I went on my leave of absence, if I had come back sooner than later, I probably would have considered quitting based on what I experienced on this 3-day trip coming back. So this was my first New York-based 3-day trip, right? So already I have had, it's caused me to have like a negative impression about working out of New York to begin with, because Seattle wasn't like that, right? So that is something that I probably have to work through and hope that I get a different, better experience in the long run. Reroutes happened. We were supposed to do, like I said, LaGuardia to West Palm Beach, and then we were also supposed to do West Palm Beach to Boston, and then lay over and then do something else. But while we were in flight working the LaGuardia to West Palm Beach, they rerouted us to go do something else. No problem. But the whole point is that we got rerouted twice. Aside from that, there were delays. We had to sit because LaGuardia had issues and they had to close the tarmac. So the LaGuardia flight, the West Palm Beach flight back to LaGuardia delayed as well. So we sat there for hours and hours and hours, and it was just chaotic and it was just too much. Okay. And aside from being delayed, there were moments where we boarded the aircraft also and we were delayed. So we were still sitting on the tarmac because we couldn't take off. And we had wheels up time given to us, which means a specific time. By that time, if we haven't taken off, we will not be allowed into LaGuardia Airport. So we won't be able to go at all. So essentially the flight will be rescheduled or canceled at this point. So remember, reroutes happened twice, and then we had delays. Then we had a crew member call out. So we went from having reroutes, delays, ground stops, which is when planes can't take off, couldn't fly in. And mind you, this is just the beginning of the chaos, honestly. So then we had a crew member call out. After the ground stops, after the delays, we also had a crew member say she can't work. So now we're down one crew member. And if you're new to the flight attendant industry, every aircraft has minimum crew. Pilots are 2, sometimes 3, depending on where or how long we're flying. And with flight attendants, sometimes depending on the aircraft, is 3, some are 4, and some are more than that. So that happened. After all that, we lose a crew member. And with our aircraft, we needed 4 crew members. So without the 4th crew member, we cannot work. Plus, it was late. It was like 11 p.m. It was like 11 p.m. at that point. And even if they can give us somebody from standby or whatever, they probably don't have anybody on standby because already there were cancellations and delays going on. This is somebody who was away for over a year, coming back to work for the first time. And this is what I get. A domestic 3-day trip that is worth next to nothing, with 3 legs, 2 legs, more legs in the day that I would like to work. And I'm saddled with reroutes, delays, ground stop, crew members calling out. It was a lot. The other thing that happened is that because a crew member called out and they could not get a replacement, we had a flight cancel. So if you ever watch a video on my channel where I talked about some of the things that can go wrong when you're flying during the summer, all those things I listed literally happened during this flight of mine, this rotation or this trip. So I was just going out of my mind. It was just too much. Plus, now, because they rerouted us to do something else, they took away our layover. So now we need to wait for a hotel. Waiting for that hotel accommodation to happen took us over 4 hours. Remember, we were waiting at 11 p.m. trying to board a flight. That didn't happen. It got canceled. So between 11 p.m. to after 4 a.m., we were sitting at the airport waiting for a hotel accommodations. Eventually, we ended up going back to our lounge though, so going through security. And guess what? Immediately we went through security, we got a call from crew tracking our accommodations or whatever, telling us that we have a hotel accommodation now. It was a lot. It was exhausting. It was tiring. And the issue was that our layovers were not even that long. What a welcome back to the industry. So that happening, our release on the first day was after 4 a.m., which I already said. And then on day 2, our release was also after 3 a.m. And then on the last day, I think was the only day that we had an early release, which was like after midnight, but before 2 a.m. I think that's what it was. But one thing I will say is moving around New York during those times was not as scary or as isolating or as uncomfortable as I expected it to be or I thought it would be, because you know New York is a very busy place, so people don't sleep, practically don't sleep there. I swapped into this trip because I wanted to get rid of my 3-day reserve. And the issue was that the person that picked up the trip, it was an 8-day assignment. So my worry was that I can get tossed, rerouted, and just separated from my crew simply because my trip was an 8-day assignment. I will say, this being my first trip back, I was a little off. Like the same way when I went for my retraining, day 1 was all over the place. I was like, yeah, I was just a little confused, not confused, but like I was a little out of it because this job requires getting used to. And I felt like a new flight attendant all over again. Not that I didn't know how to do things. I was better off than a new flight attendant, but it took me a moment to remember things and figure things out. But I think that had to do more with the crew that I worked with. And I'm coming to that point as well because starting off our day 2, we hear that there's a sinkhole in LaGuardia. So LaGuardia has been through a lot. I feel like that airport has been so chill, and all of a sudden there's just so much going on with LaGuardia Airport right now. There's a whole sinkhole. It's like somebody took a big spoon and scooped a piece of the tarmac. So they had to shut one tarmac down, and then we had to use only one. And you know what that means? That means delays, ground stops here and there to handle traffic. So once again, day 2 became as chaotic as day 1. The only difference is that day 2, we did not have a team member call out, and we did not have any reroutes on day 2. Our mission was just to work the trips we had, layover, just eventually get to Fort Lauderdale, because I was looking forward to that layover, and then just come back home. Day 2 to me was supposed to be a little better than day 1. However, it was worse than day 1, not because of the job, but because of the people, the person that I had to work with. It's so sad to say that being based in New York for the first time, and this being my first trip, it's one of those things where I feel like I don't do no-fly lists and stuff like that. But this particular person, I would not be flying with them again. If I have to swap into reserve just to not work with them, I would do so. Like, I get it, people making hasty decisions and rash decisions here and there, but this person's aura, attitude, and behavior was so toxic and draining and exhausting that I was mentally exhausted from working with this individual. And I would have preferred it be passengers, because I know with a passenger, I'm only with you for the duration of the flight. It might be an hour, it might be 2. Even if it's a 15-hour flight, I know that eventually I won't have to be with you at the end of the day, right? But when it's a crew member, then it's like you're stuck with them for 3 full days. And it's not even a turn or like a 1-day trip. It's a full 3-day trip. And I know for sure that I will not be working with this person ever in my life again. It was just bad. And what I don't like is people threatening you with something. So it's like this person kept threatening myself, and because I was assist on that trip, I was the most junior, so I chose to be assist, flight leader, so assistant in first class. When you have somebody threatening you with, if you don't do this, and I'm gonna call out, or if this something keeps happening, I'm gonna call out. And I feel like we're all a team, right? We're supposed to work as a team. So when you have a team member crashing out over things going wrong, things that potentially can go wrong, because nobody's perfect. And unless your life is in danger and you're like practically dying or about to die or get injured or hurt, I don't see why anyone should be crashing out over the slightest thing that happened. No matter, even if a passenger is being unruly, unless they're threatening your physical body or they're putting your physical in danger, there's no point for anyone to be crashing out. Or unless they're being like verbally abusive or physically abusive, I don't see why anyone should be crashing out. And it made the day worse because we already had a lot going on. And to have your own team member acting out and just doing the most over the phone, calling us, complaining because of the tiniest mistakes, tiniest errors that would not change the course of the flight in any way. And to top it all off, and this person will talk in a nasty way while passengers are around, whether they're going to be on our flight or not, whether we're in the shuttle, whether we're at the airport. You should be careful, especially when I'm in uniform. I am careful how I speak and what I speak about and how I speak about it, because you don't know who's listening. A lot of the times they listen to our conversations, especially when there are cancellations and delays going on around us. So when you have somebody cussing, just talking about how angry they are and how mean they're going to be and how no customer should be asking them for snacks or drinks or anything, like, it's the pettiest thing ever. And I feel like this job is way too easy for us to be stressing over nonsensical things, like things that don't matter, things that are irrelevant. Okay. And at some point we're doing service and I'm trying to give out like snacks to one of our cabins, for example, and this person's like, no, they've had enough, or this amount should be enough for them. And I'm like, we have them for a reason, especially when they're in excess. And for whatever reason, people happen to be hungry. But if we have the snacks, there is nowhere that Daddy D is telling us if somebody wants extra snacks, don't give it to them, or I'm going to get written up or fired because I gave somebody extra snacks. There isn't. And people paid for the experience. So why are you being stingy with the food? It was so weird to me and so confusing because I've met people that did not want to give out extra snacks, right? But this person went to the extreme. At some point, I had to insist. At some point also, after day 2, I was honestly scared to ask this individual for anything or to say anything around this individual because of how they would react. And on day 2, the fact that they kept threatening us that they were going to call out, Honestly, I told the lead that I think it would be better off if they called out or they didn't show up for the day 3, because I think it would make our experience much better. Because right now, we need crew members to work, but you being here is so exhausting that it's affecting our energy, it's affecting everything we're doing. Then at some point, I was at assist, right? So I was at the gate. So I'm supposed to watch out for bags that have tags and stuff like that, trying not to let them get on. Because once you tag your bag, essentially, I don't know if you fly, you know this. Once you tag your carry-on, it means it's supposed to go under the plane, like not under the plane, but in the baggage area on the aircraft. It cannot come on board with you. So we had a lot going on. There was just so much going on, honestly. And I think I missed 3 bags. This person had a fit. They had a fit. They literally told us they wanted us to stop boarding just so that they can bring the bags to the front and put it by the gate. Already, mind you, we've been delayed so that we can just roll the bags out and then continue boarding. And people are stuck in the jetway. So even if you bring the bags off the aircraft, there's still people standing around and you're potentially going to hurt somebody, you know? And the lead was like, no, we can't do that now. Let's just get everybody on board and then we can roll the bags out. That's fine. And then they start threatening us. They're going to call out. They don't want to do this. They're going to call out. And the worst of it all was that they were so frustrated with the issue that they called our pilots who were trying to do their checks to make sure the aircraft is in good condition to fly, to complain to them. And we could hear them talking and complaining in the nasty tone, nasty voice about the fact that 3 bags got away and they were gate checked. Aside from that, this individual was having an encounter with a passenger also on the plane. So at this point, based on what you're doing to me and the other crew members, how do I even believe that the passenger was being unruly? What if it was you causing the commotion? But this honestly was a very bad experience working at New York for the first time, and this being my first trip back because I did not expect this, you know? It was just too much. It was a negative 10/10 for me. I just could not. It was the worst experience ever. And I've had bad trips. You guys know, I share my bad experiences with you guys on this channel. But this by far was the worst because it had to do with a crew member. And it's like, we're supposed to be on the same team. And you know what the implications are when you call out mid-trip. So essentially, you're trying to punish us because something went wrong when it's something that is so not important. It's not. But talking about it and thinking about it is stressing me out right now, but I'm just going to go grab something to eat, guys. Thank you all for watching today's video. I hope that I get much better experiences moving forward. And if you are New York based, let me know what kind of trips to work to avoid crazy people like this, because I don't know what was going on. It was just too much. I hope they learn moving forward and not treat people that way, because you can get in trouble treating people like that. Because the way he was talking, and even when he came up to first class, he was standing literally in front of first class telling us how frustrated he was by the process and his mannerisms, his tone, and the kind of words he was using. And honestly, I wouldn't want to be associated with somebody like this, because then people see us working and they think we're all the same. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching today's video. Hopefully I get better experiences based in New York. But it is definitely not a good way to start my experience at the base, but it is what it is. We're just going to roll with the punches at this point. But keep watching, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.